Hello, everybody. I had some audio issues. Hopefully you can hear me now. Oh, we have some people here. I'm going to promote Holly, promote to panelist. Wonderful. And without further ado, Holly, it's our first tardy start since we started doing this at the end of July. Thank you for bearing with the internet ability, everyone. Holly, I can't hear you yet. Let me know when you're live. And
I'm live. I'm as live as it gets.
Wonderful, wonderful. Look at us both with our architectural backgrounds.
Right.
But the sunlight is.
You have nice sunshine.
It is. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our October 13th edition of Family Forum. If you do have questions, please get them in at about 6:20 this evening. I believe we'll be visited by our athletic director, Victor Vondracek, who will talk about how to register for winter activities and what's coming up. And probably will sing the praises of our girls soccer team, among other things. And then for the first few minutes here, I'm just going to run through the talking points that we go through every week, which include numbers, right? And then Holly, if there are any questions that you remember us getting in, for everyone listening and watching, you can always send a question to office@greatriverschool.org. And what happens when you do that is I and Holly track those questions and then bring them to the forum to answer. And so I still am looking forward to bringing some elementary folks forward to talk about the curriculum they use. I know that's a longer running question that I've answered in short snippets, but I know folks out in the listening world would like to see maybe some expert visits, and so I'm trying to plan that. Holly, if you think of any questions, I think you should type some in the Q&A too, just so we know which ones will be coming up.
Okay.
And then those, well, hello, kitty cat. And then those of you who are attending here now also, I like the feline visit you're getting, Holly. You should feel free to put any questions you can into the Q&A. And of course, always the chat is fun. I'll open up the chat. The chat is live. There you go. So what I'm going to do, though, is share some case data. And specifically, as I share my screen here, this document that I am bringing up is the summary spot for us to look at this data every week. And what I want to identify is that I was just on a call late last week and again this morning with other school leaders, superintendents, and folks from across the state. And some of the data that we're looking at here is what's called a lagging indicator, which in terms of vocabulary, I think a lot of folks could guess at what lagging indicator means. But because I think there are some fans of the illustrative approach watching tonight, I just want to say a lagging indicator would be, well, imagine I didn't really think this one out too much, but imagine that we are on a train and the train is traveling at a certain speed. What do you think, Holly? Train like?
It looks, yes, like a train.
A trainee, great. It's a steam engine. So
Nice.
It's got a pile of coal in the back. We're looking probably in terms of train history, late 19th century, early 20th.
Thomas?
Yeah, I think so. It could be. Yeah.
Tommy.
Well, maybe it's one of Thomas's tough friends. Yeah, it's Brutus.
Brutus.
In any case, if we're on a train and that train track is traveling a long ways, then specifically what I think about is a lagging indicator would be like right now, we're right here. And what we can see is where we were as that train travels around. What we can see is where we were 2 weeks ago. And that's some of the lagging indicator sort of information that we get. In terms of telling us about where we are right now, the percentage of positive cases by county that you see here, that's one of the most current data points. And so, for instance, this is as of October 8th, the data that was gathered between October 1st and October 8th was put together and put into this case rate number. And so that's one of the right now indicators. But when we look down below, so if this is the future, we got a lot of train track that we have passed already. And in terms of our status of what life was like 2 weeks ago, when we're looking at these case rates down here, these are, again, the case rate per 10,000 people, which is one of the indicators we use to decide on safe school models. We see that 913 through 926 cases went up, and also 96 through 919. The Department of Health was actually doing more processing last week on the 8th when we entered data, and just released both of these weeks in the last 2 weeks. Case counts in all 7 metro counties have gone up. And what I look at is what percentage are they going up by. So if we took Ramsey County, which is where our school is, Holly, would be helpful if I zoomed in even more. Whoa!
Yes, please.
Okay, great. So Ramsey County, just in terms of percentages, I want to get out like the bead bars right now and all the Montessori materials and start really talking about them. But what I am going to do is just talk about decimals, where I'm seeing the 30th through the 12th here, our case rate in Ramsey County, oh, right here, was as low as it had been really since we had started taking data in early July. That case rate being low there was why I was talking about if the case rate stays this low or drops a little for 4 or 5 weeks in a row, that's when we can start talking about indicators that being more in person is probably something we could start talking about planning. However, to see 13.5 go up to 15.5 in terms of being more than a 10% increase, and then again to see it go from 15 to 19, which again is close to a 30% increase in numbers, means that when we're looking at that lagging indicator, it's almost like our train is in the dark, and what we're looking back at is, oh, we can see that 2 weeks ago, right here, case rates were going up. And we can also see that the current indicator is showing us that percent of positive tests is still above 5%, which we want to see it below 5%. We're happy to see it not be above 10% right now. That would be a threshold that would make us very concerned about the spread of this virus in our community. Between 5 and 10% though is still an alarm bell, maybe not all the alarm bells, but an alarm bell that the lagging indicator of the cases have gone up 2 weeks ago, probably was an indication that the cases have continued to go up as we've been traveling through time here. And what we want to see as I scroll down, excuse me, in these graphs, this is our graph chart of 14-day case rate per 10,000. And again, this gray line here is 20 cases per 10,000. This gray line is 10 cases per 10,000. What we want to see are bars that are drifting downward and to the right and hanging out around 10. And what we see of these past 2 weeks is that the bars in most of the counties, in fact, are going up and getting up above the 20 mark. Now the 20 mark means 20 cases per 10,000. And if anyone remembers from 2 weeks ago, the information that I gave about how to think about that in terms of our school community is that we are a school community of roughly, when we're on campus, about 1,000 people. And so when I think about 20 cases per 10,000, it's a little bit like 2 cases per 1,000. And for our Great River School community of 1,000 people, knowing that case rates are actually 2 and likely going up from 2. The most recent information I saw about Ramsey, Hennepin, and Anoka counties is that their case rates were setting records for daily cases reported. And so I would suspect that when the 9/20 through 9 or through maybe 10/1 data comes out, that we would be looking at numbers that went up even from here. And so that's not, I don't want to see that, because I know, frankly, me, all the Montessori educators I know, and many of you want to be back in school in person very soon, but these increasing numbers are a challenge to doing more in person than we're doing currently. And so when I think about 2 cases or maybe more than 2 cases, if we see these numbers go up, like we see some of them around 25, and then if we saw them even go up further to 30 cases, 3 per 1,000. Those numbers for me indicate a situation in which positive cases within the community in the school building would interrupt learning such that it's not responsible to start planning for a more aggressive or more in-person model without really clearly understanding that we're going to be interrupted often by positive cases within the community. And so I think I went over this pretty quickly, but basically, if the county rate is per 10,000, what I'm drawing out here is that in Great River School, we take away a 0 and we have a good measure for us. So if the county rate, say, in Anoka County right now is 25.9, then from Anoka County, we're likely to have 2.5 cases in our building per 10,000. Now, we're actually a much bigger community. These 1,000 people, about 120 of them are employees, about 800 of them are students. They see 2 or 3 people at least outside of Great River School. And so the community of 1,000 people in the building really touches many others. And what we know from looking at this data is that we do have to use and follow the data. Internally, we have been thinking about how we would be more in person, especially for our youngest learners. But we do want to see these case rates going down and hanging around 10 per 10,000. And we also want to see an infection positivity rate below 5% before we start talking more about that. We are confident that the mitigation strategies we're able to take on at the School Resource Center are sufficient to mitigate the spread of the virus within our own community. And we are now actually well practiced at taking action when someone is exposed or has symptoms or thinks they might need a test because they either have symptoms or are exposed. So we're actually well practiced now at keeping portions of our School Resource Center community at home and continuing to operate. And I suppose I want to say something that I haven't said yet, I don't think in a recording, but the difference between mitigation and prevention, just to use the whiteboard, because I know at least one current listener likes the whiteboard, is that prevention stops something before it happens. And I'm spelling and talking at the same time, which is not a strength of mine. And so, prevention means that before the event happens, we are able to stop it, and we can be confident about that. That's not what we're capable of doing currently. What we're able to do right now is we're able to mitigate, which means to reduce the occurrence of or likelihood of, but not eliminate the likelihood or occurrence of transmission of the virus within our school community. So I do suspect this year, doing everything that we're doing and doing it perfectly, it is likely, because we're living through a global pandemic, that someone will test positive in the building, that there would even be a transmission from one person to another, possibly in the building. And I've said this before on calls, I've said this with staff, and I've said this specifically when talking about the difference between these two words. But what we want for our children in terms of their education, no matter how bad we want it, does not change the fact that we're living through a situation we're trying to mitigate right now. And as one convincing epidemiologist I heard say just a month ago said, if you're in a pool and you know it's wet and you're trying to keep your hair dry, that's what we're trying to do living out in the world during this pandemic. It's more likely than not that you're going to come in contact with the wetness that you're living among. And so we're doing our best. We can mitigate it, but we likely, through the course of the year, we can't prevent it for everybody. And that's why we have to be so conservative, frankly, seeing these case numbers going up. So there's the summary. It's short, yeah. And that doesn't mean, however, that we can't do things like celebrate activities and do some of them. With these case numbers going up, there are some, I think, somewhat confusing things I've seen come out of the State High School League, for instance, announcing that spectators are welcome at indoor events and concerts and things like that. I think that is optimistic of them. And I know that in many communities in rural Minnesota, up until this past 2 weeks, had not seen many cases per 10,000. And so really wanted to hold the important events that are, landmarks in the school year. And so I will say that Great River School will continue to use medical data provided by the Department of Health about county level case data and support as many activities and responsible things that we can do for families and for students. But attending, concerts and games is not likely to be one of those things when we see these numbers going up. And on that note, I will stop my screen share. I don't see anything in the Q&A.
Yeah.
Yes?
Can you go back to the train?
Oh, sure. I could just draw it up again.
Just because in the chat, there's a comment about the train.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, so yeah, I had a curve. I mean, it is going to be a curved track. I'm not sure how aware people are about train development. We don't have to talk about this. You didn't sign, no one signed up for this. And I'm not really drawing this in perspective. We could be much smaller in the background there. But the curved track would indicate that there were lots of challenges in the environment. And, oh, indeed, challenges around lagging indicators to predict the future. Dave, the comment that is not visible to everyone is, the curved track is a good metaphor for the challenges around using lagging indicators to predict the future. You can see the curves behind you, and they seem close, but are actually far away. And indeed, when you're going around these curves, you can't really often see what's up ahead. And it seems, in fact, like you've traveled a great distance, but not much has changed in the landscape. And this only happens when you have topography that you usually can't get around otherwise. Like it's too much work, labor, energy, or cost to get around these things. And so, we are living through these unknown barriers in the future. So yeah, agreed. And as I make sure that our athletic director has the link to this meeting, I will chat them in. Holly, is there anything that you can think of that we should talk about?
Well, really quickly, a question I had today was, when are conferences?
Oh yeah, well, in November, and they're on the calendar, and the format for them is being worked on right now. They're an important time for students to be or mitigating their work. No, presenting their work. A really important time for students to be presenting their work. And so we will still be having conferences. They won't look exactly the same as they have in the past. And I suppose that's all I'll say right now. If that's okay. But they are on the calendar. And then something we should mention, Holly, is that MEA is still occurring. The Minnesota Education Association, or as my grandmother used to call it, the fall break, because everyone needs a break. The Minnesota Education Association is still having a conference, and that conference is, there we go. That conference is happening virtually, but still happening, and that is happening on Thursday and Friday. We don't have any school activities tomorrow. There's no school resource center tomorrow. All of our staff will be meeting throughout the day tomorrow to reflect, to talk, to plan. And then adolescent students, it's important to know, adolescent students do not have live Zoom meetings on Monday the 19th. Adolescent students do have reflective activities, some looking back at what they've done and making some maybe statements and assessments and reflecting on what they've done, and then some looking forward to what the goals are for their next steps. So especially in the 7th and 8th year, this might be the first time that they've done this kind of activity as an adolescent. I know in 9th and in 10th through 12th grade, it will be a time to think about, what did I do well academically? What could I work on specifically? How can I make goals for this next round of courses? And then new courses begin for the 9th through 12th years on Tuesday the 20th. So they started the first 3 for the first series, the first learning cycle. And now that second learning cycle comes with their other 3 courses. And then in the 7th and 8th year, they'll move actually from one guide who is leading them in the first cycle to the next guide who will lead them through another iteration of a different content area in the next cycle. Now for elementary students, we do still have learning cycles, and elementary students still have live Zoom meetings on the 19th through the 22nd, but Friday the 23rd is actually going to be a day where teachers get together, collaborate, maybe tinker, improve, and polish things. And then on the 23rd, there's going to be reflective activities for students, the elementary students. So I just want to be accurate that Monday the 19th, there will be no live Zoom meetings for 7th through 12th year students. And then Friday the 23rd will be the same kind of asynchronous day just for elementary students. And we've put that out. We sent out a reminder email, but I just want people to know. And as one family said to me on the phone today, oh, MEA is still happening? And I had to say yes, even though it feels like the world might have stopped for 6 months, MEA is still happening and there still is no school. There you go. But conference is still on November 12th and 13th, and then the rest of the school calendar is still updated. And so these asynchronous reflection days will happen, I think, 4 more times throughout the year. And Victor has just messaged me, just looking for an email. His device is not connecting, so we'll get him in here soon. And Holly, I just learned from Victor that last year the athletic participation at Great River doubled from the year before. And
Nice.
this fall, we have more athletes participating in the sports that are offered than we have had for, I think, 5 years. So
Very good. That warms my heart.
I know, me too. I don't know if people knew this. I am an athlete.
I know you are.
I like to do things. I like to run and jump, and I'm a little bit, I'm like over competitive in team sports. I get bored doing individual things though.
Like pottery and.
Well, yeah, like individual competition things.
Oh, yeah.
I like doing pottery.
Yeah, I would think so.
Do sort of aimlessly, but if I was racing, I'd really want more people in the boat. I think is where I'm going.
Yeah. I've had my share of sports as well.
Oh yeah, well, tell us about what is your sports story?
Well, starting when I was about 13, I used to play football with the neighborhood boys.
Yeah.
And I was the kicker, and I kicked the ball. It was just a perfect kick.
Oh yeah.
And a team member from the opposite side came and tackled me at the knee, and it kind of went sideways. And so they told me what all of their coaches told them: walk it off, you'll be fine.
Oh, right.
So I now have a titanium knee.
Okay.
Yeah.
Superhero.
But volleyball would be more where I was safer, except for ankles and,
Yeah.
volleyball type injuries. This middle finger.
Careful, Holly.
I know. I have to be careful. Like, I jammed it into a volleyball and it flopped down, and I couldn't, no matter what I said to myself, I couldn't lift it back up. It's very traumatic, but now it's fixed, as you can tell.
Oh my goodness. Is there titanium in there?
No, it was just in a little brace. I mean, it's still not perfect. I don't want to really show you, but
I see.
It's not perfect like the other one. That's good.
Well, so one highlight, I think, is that we do have women's volleyball going on right now. I know.
Yes, I watched the game on Friday night.
You did?
I did.
Wonderful.
It was live on Facebook.
Oh, I did. I have to get on Facebook.
Well,
I've been avoiding Facebook, but for things like this.
Volleyball.
Okay. Well, Holly, you got to tell me next time that's happening. Okay. I would join for virtual watching.
Yeah, it was nice. It was kind of difficult because it was virtual, but I was glad to be able to cheer people on, even though they couldn't hear me.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually going to promote Victor Vondracek, our athletic director, to a panelist. And then Holly, we're going to do our first interview of the month. We interviewed our school nurse. Hey, Victor.
Hi, Victor.
In the office with the logo behind him. Hi, Victor.
Just got done with volleyball practice.
Nice. Victor, I was about to say that I was just speaking earlier in this meeting about the difference between prevention and mitigation, and that we can't prevent likely the spread of this in our community. It's going to happen. We just want it low enough that the people.
A lot of people want to know how we can minimize it to the best of our ability. That's the ultimate goal.
Exactly, and that you recently, through good communication and taking action, identified that our volleyball team competed with a team who likely had been exposed to the virus. And so we I believe there was going to be a game. We canceled the game though, correct?
Yeah, so we postponed it on Monday. Yep.
Yeah. So again, we are getting practice at how to mitigate this activity, and when it is safe to have more activities, we will. But so Victor, what's coming up in the world of registration?
Yeah, I got in here early enough to hear you guys talk about the Facebook Live, and good thing is that you don't need to be on Facebook to watch it.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So we just send out the link as soon as we create the event, and then we send out the link, and you have to receive it to watch it. It's not, we don't just open it.
Oh, right.
So yeah, that's all indoor sports is what we're working on. And good news, our girls soccer team actually won tonight against Roosevelt. Is the first round of sections.
Wow.
And I believe we play the #1 seed on Thursday.
Whoa.
I think it's Holy Angels or Holy Family, so it's going to be a tough one, but it'll be a good game.
Yeah.
Will that be live stream?
So I don't know if we were able to get, if they have a Wi-Fi signal at their stadium, which not a lot of schools do.
Yeah.
We'll definitely explore the option. So,
Okay.
but we record it and then we upload it after. I know it's not the same.
So
But
exciting.
That's a big deal. Victor, how many capital A's go along with our school's qualification as an athletics powerhouse?
I would, yep. So soccer, there's only 2 sections though. Soccer is section 1A and section 2A, and that's one of the big things that's on the discussion table at the high school league is expanding it to at least 3 or 4 classes, because you'll get those schools like the Holy Angels, which are right on the fringe, which they could go up and play section 2 or class 2A, but they sneak just right under the cutoff and they dominate smaller schools such as ourselves.
So they decide that between how many numbers are in attendance at the schools involved, correct?
So right now it's totally up to the schools. So well, with COVID, right? So what the outdoor capacity is right now, they said 25%, and that's if you want to. Obviously we don't allow fans. I mean, there's a public sidewalk that I can't kick you off of if you want to come watch, but it's all just varies on the school. The AD lets me know, and then I translate it to our parents and families if they want to go watch, if they can. I think in our conference, we've had maybe 2 schools that do allow spectators. So, yeah, but in terms of winter sports coming up, I have an update for the girls basketball, but that's later. So I'll start with the one coming up the soon or the earliest, which is boys basketball. First day of practice starts November 23rd, and we are sending out registrations, all digital, will be next week. And what we do is you basically just got to check the box, very similar to the fall ones, and then e-sign, because we just want to make everything electronic so we don't have to touch it and pass it along, and just submit it back to me. And those will be due on the 13th of November. And then again, they'll hopefully be out early next week, and then you'll have till the 13th to register. Girls basketball, they pushed the girls start date back, so it starts December 7th, and the registrations will be a week after the boys on November 20th.
Okay.
And I'm waiting to hear back from Josh at Minnehaha. I know we had a couple girls want to play hockey for that on their start date, but I do know that TCA co-ops, we're part of 2 different co-ops. Great River is part of Minnehaha for girls hockey, and TCA is part of Woodbury's. Theirs starts November 30th for practice. So as soon as I get more information from them, they just had a turnover of a new athletic director. So she's kind of getting her bearings set, trying to figure out who to communicate with. Boys hockey, I would assume, is going to be right around there with St. Paul Academy. And then cheerleading is the question mark. The high school league hasn't really told us how they're going to handle or tackle the cheerleading sport this year, just due to it being inside along with basketball. That's one thing that we haven't heard from their task force on the return participation. Nordic Ski, Expect that to kind of run on time, just like cross country, very similar to how cross country was. Being outside, they have a lot less risk associated with that sport. So that'll probably go on as normal, but they might tweak how the meets look, how many teams are actually invited. So.
Okay.
Yep. And then, yeah, we're still looking for wrestling and swimming partnerships, but right now, all St. Public schools do not do any co-ops. So it's it limits us to who we can kind of partner with. And basically it's going to be all the private schools like Minnehaha, St. Paul Academy, Mounds Park Academy, all that kind of type. So it's challenging, but we're still on it. So we're still trying to get it.
Yep. And then let's see, in terms of is boys volleyball, is that a spring sport?
Boys volleyball is a spring sport. Yep. I know Lindsay does an open gym with them maybe once a week at Great River.
Yep.
And I'll throw that plug in right now. We are looking for more boys. So if you have a kid interested in that, it's a huge growing sport. And it's honestly, it's a great sport. Volleyball is one of my favorites. Just came from the girls' volleyball practice. And so it's something we're trying to build. So
I played boys volleyball. I feel people try to hide this. Back in the 90s, when I was a teenager, I played boys volleyball. And at the time, there was no boys volleyball league. And so I could play in junior high. And then in 9th grade, I couldn't afford club. And so
got it. See, there's a question. What is
volleyball was heyday at that point. So I just watched a lot of beach volleyball. And then I jumped around on the couch at my house.
Yeah, no, volleyball is super fun, growing sport. It's still technically not sanctioned by the high school league, but it's being test piloted by the high school league for a different group. So it's growing. It's a huge sport. I got questions. So cross country. So that looks, cross country skiing, which is what we call Nordic skiing. So sorry, I was confused when I saw that. So Nordic ski is outside, and what they basically, they go to lakes, and they ski around them. It's kind of like cross country, just running outside around a lake or a golf course. There's sometimes what they'll do is they'll go to a couple ski mountains. I am not very privy to
Well, I know 2 years ago we had an alpine team, and I'm not sure last year if anybody wanted to participate in alpine, which is downhill. So Nordic is on flat rolling ground, and then alpine. I'll cross out cheer. I don't mean to cross out cheer, but it's a question mark.
Yeah, question mark.
I think of if you're trying to remember everybody how to do which kind of skiing. Alpine is like you got to ski down the big A in alpine.
There you go. So the time frames, we get out at 4:00 at TCA, and I think you guys get out a little bit earlier at Great River, and so we kind of just carpool. And last year was our first year with a new coach, Jordan Taylor. Kids loved him. Families liked him. And then Matt, who's also been involved forever, is a great asset to the team. He's going to still stay involved. And he kind of helps just communicate to the families at Great River because he works there as the dean of students. And then I'm over here trying to shuffle over our TCA kids. But they basically meet at a central location, which is communicated out every Sunday night. I try to tell my coaches to communicate the whole weekly practice plan. Yep. And it goes maybe till about 4:30 to about 6:30, depending on how long they want to. And then what's that?
2 days a week, I think.
It depends sometimes. If kids want to do it, if they get more interest, it all depends on if we're trying to have a competitive style versus a more learning how to ski, relaxed, recreational style. Mm-hmm. The coaches will go to as many practices as the kids want to do.
Okay.
So it's very open. We take kids that have no clue how to ski. We take kids that are great skiers. It's open for everybody, but the practice is typically about 2 hours per practice. And then I know they do Saturday mornings sometimes. They meet at some slopes and just knock it out there.
And so I know that's happened at Phelan, at Como, and I think at Highland Park around the Twin Cities in terms of where there's groomed ski trails. And it depends a little bit on the quality of snow and weather also. But if you've never participated before, it's a great year to start because it's outdoors. And if you're interested, I have heard from a few folks who are interested in swimming, and it has been a few years since we found a willing swimming co-op. How many swimmers would we need to form our own team, Victor?
Our own team, I would say probably, and So this is just my lack of knowledge, just because I haven't been around swimming, but I would say at least 10. I don't want to say how many events you have to field just because I don't know. But in order to just get into a co-op, we could have as few as 1 or 2.
Yep.
So.
And so we are looking, I know Victor does a great job finding co-ops for participation. So.
The swimming one is on my board, and then boys and girls lacrosse has been big interest buzzing in Minnesota, and I think I have a couple potential schools that might want to explore the option of actually doing this. I know I think St. Paul Academy actually wanted to. They're in a co-op right now, but they wanted to jump in their own, and we've had a good relationship with St. Paul Academy. And they asked if we would be interested or have any kids for the lacrosse side of it. But yeah, COVID doesn't make it any easier, and everybody knows that.
Holly, you have a question?
There's a question in the chat. Is there any news on archery?
I know Great River runs their archery program, and we were exploring. We had a kid graduate last year that has a relative that owns a pretty big archery range, I believe. So we were.
I know a week from Saturday, I believe, will be an archery event that's going to start to be promoted. One of our high schoolers has gotten together with one of our elementary archery coaches, and they're going to host an open event. And so they just picked up the equipment from school today. But I don't believe archery is governed by the state high school league.
Right. Yep.
It's governed, I believe, by the National Archery in the Schools program, NASP. And so I am in conversation currently, though, with some of those coaches from last year about, I think we have 3 students interested in competing this year. And so I am in conversation about this. I think we do now at this point in the year, months before any other year, have coaches interested in helping those students compete if those competitions are held. Again, they're usually indoors in field houses. There's usually hundreds of people at the same event. And so it's a little bit of a struggle for those competitions is what I've most recently heard. But the archery events, I know, will start outside at outdoor ranges.
I have another question. This one's in the Q&A.
Yeah.
What do the Nordic skiers do if there is no snow?
They get in shape. They do cardio.
They run.
Yep.
But they also go, I know this because I've talked with Matt in previous years, Matt, the coach. There are a couple sites in the Twin Cities that do make snow for Nordic skiing, and they're just a little farther away than Como or Highland or Phelan. So if there is no snow, the team still gets together, they still do activities. They don't often involve skis, but then they also plan carpools and travel to those places that do make snow for groomed tracks for Nordic ski.
I have another question.
All right.
From the chat. How will you keep us updated on swimming? Where can we look to find?
So it's basically just me shooting out a bunch of email feelers to local schools, private schools, see, like, hey, do you have any interest? And then basically, so what the parents can do is just keep emailing me so I have a list of who's interested. That way, when we do get a partner, I'm like, okay, I can go to my swim page, copy, paste all emails, plug them in. We did have a potential partner at Mounds Park Academy before COVID hit last year. This is something we were working on. And when COVID came down, their school basically put a freeze on all co-ops as well. But so right now, I mean, so that's not off the hook for the future, but just as of this year, we don't have anybody yet. But Mounds Park is definitely a big potential partner.
In Mounds Park, have we partnered with Mounds Park for other sports, Victor?
So we haven't partnered with them for sports, but they let us use their track, which is great. It's very close to our school. So then they give us use on their track, which is for very, very cheap.
Yeah.
Which is great. And we've just kind of.
Is vvondracek at twincitiesacademy.org, correct, Victor?
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat group.
Okay. There you go. I sent it to everybody. It's already. Okay. And so I know you're working on that, and I'll just update folks who are listening or watching, letting us know early if you have a sport you want to participate in, is the way to make that happen. So I've seen that happen with hockey. I've seen that happen in the past with swimming before Victor's time. And really, we are just working out usually small individual partnerships that can turn into more permanent things.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have something you want to participate in, let us know. Victor has done great work at multiple charter schools, setting up sports for students. So
another one that we are doing at TCA right now, kind of as a club sport, is badminton, for girls badminton.
Right. And so what kind of safety and COVID prevention protocols are in place for playing?
So I am very, very anal about germs in general. So our policies are kind of go above what the mandatory is throughout the high school league and MDE practices and CDC guidances. So what we do for every sport, I give each coaches for their team a packet of about 100 sheets of their final rosters for their kids. And it is basically a checkoff sheet, sign in for every practice, every game. We take their temperature. As long as it's below 100.4, they can come on in. And while they're waiting, they're 6 feet apart, marked by an X on the ground, waiting to get their temp taken with their mask on. Coaches are always masked. The series of questions that we ask every single day are, do you have taste? Do you have smell? Have you had a sore throat, headache, stomach ache? And then obviously the big one, have you been around somebody that has COVID? Do you know anyone has COVID, or do you live with anybody that has COVID? And then it's very simple. If they answer yes to any of those questions, they can't come to practice that day. And I'll go over the situation that we had this weekend with volleyball. It was handled very well in a very timely fashion. So a student athlete at Hiawatha left practice on Thursday, developed symptoms, got tested, so she was quarantining. We found out Sunday that 2 girls were in close contact, were actually at the game, but they played the back row. So what the CDC defines close contact is 6 feet, within 6 feet for 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. And being in the back row, our team and coaches, none of them were exposed to that. I wouldn't even say a lot of their team maybe was, but then we traced it back. None of our kids, none of our coaches were in contact or close contact. And that's when, people start to say, oh, they were in close contact of a close contact, but we're actually all in close contact of close contacts, if you look at it. So we did that. Nobody was exposed. We decided we canceled the game, obviously, for Monday. That's going to be rescheduled. The high school league has allowed us a couple makeup weeks to add those games. Because like we were talking about earlier, Sam, it will happen. It's just what schools are doing to minimize the risk as much as they can. So for indoor sports, we have a one-way enter, a one-way exit, so kids are not mixing or cross-contamination. We have hand sanitizer wipes at every practice. When the coaches are talking, the coaches are always masked during the practices, indoor and outdoor. During the games, everybody that's sitting on the bench, not in the game, has to be masked and socially distanced. TCA is not allowing any fans, even though, and this kind of upset a lot of people. The MDE came out last Friday and said every student athlete for the indoor sports can have 2 spectators. And that was really, they kind of shocked us, because the high school league initially said no fans inside at all. Yep. And so it was kind of big news when the MDE came out and said, yes, you can have 2 fans. But like I said, we're still not assuming that risk. We basically just want our kids to play.
No. We get cozy in that gym. There's no room for spectators.
I know, and that's the other thing. They said, so the varsity is playing, the junior varsity can stay, but they have to be in the bleachers, all 6 feet apart, all masked up. And then a lot of schools in our section are just kind of smaller. We don't have those giant gyms with the giant bleachers, so we don't want to put anybody else at risk if we can't tell them that there's 0 risk. So we're taking, it's really good preventatives. I'd like to say that we haven't had one fever here, knock on wood, or one person test positive for COVID yet. So we haven't had to shut anything down. So knock on wood, hopefully it stays that way. Yep.
In early communication about exposure, do you know someone who tested, that has kept, at Great River, that has kept our school resource center, and even families who aren't coming in physically are letting us know if they're exposed. It's just a good way to let us know how in contact with the virus our community is at this point.
Right. Yeah. And I know for over in St. Paul for TCA, St. Paul is kind of growing in terms of COVID numbers as of late. But I mean, we're doing the best we can. That's what I tell Betsy, our director at TCA, is that, I mean, we can't stop it from happening. We can just minimize the risk.
Yep. And so with, communication and then getting ahead of it as much as we can. So just in terms of those dates, it sounds like basketball registration, November 20th is when practice starts for.
Or no, that's when the registrations are due.
Oh, registration's due November 20th, and then for the girls' team, registration's due on the 27th.
Correct.
And then hockey registrations or interest would be.
Hockey, I would say, get those registrations back to me as soon as possible because hockey does start sooner.
Okay.
Yep.
Great, and we'll send all the stuff out next week through Victor.
Yep.
Holly.
Wait, I have registration due for boys basketball on November 13th, not the 20th.
Oh yeah, 13th and 20th. Yep.
Oh, 13th. Okay.
And the 20th is for girls.
Correct. A week later. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Registration. These are registration dates. Here we go. Registration. Thanks for sticking with me, everybody. And then you think when are dates that people should think about ski season? So
I would say when in doubt, just go along with the basketball. Just if you know you're going to do it, turn it in right away.
Okay. So I'd say early November.
Right. And then cheerleading is a big question mark. I actually talked to a couple girls today. They're like, are we doing cheer? And I said, I honestly have no idea. So
we're waiting on the state of Minnesota and the state high school league that authorizes that activity to let us know what's going on.
Yep. Let's see if I got any other dates for you.
Okay.
I think that's it. Yeah.
That's great. And then for those activities that are not part of state high school league winter sports, I know that currently there's boys volleyball, and any adolescent boy is welcome to inquire about that because there are weekly meetings. And I know that Lindsay Weaver, who is a math teacher at Great River, coaches the varsity McAllister women's team, but really has a passion for this volleyball at school and is doing a lot to keep the gym as mitigated as possible for those activities. And then also archery, we'll get some information out to the community about archery. Again, happen mostly outside this fall, and then through the winter, we're looking at ways that we can do it safely indoors and how many folks we would want to keep doing it.
Lacrosse.
And then lacrosse, is lacrosse a spring sport, right?
Yep. Lacrosse is a spring sport.
Right. Lacrosse. And then
Swimming.
What's that?
Swimming.
Swimming? Well, we don't have a swimming co-op now, but we are looking for one.
Okay, girls badminton.
Well, yeah.
Spring as well. Yep.
Spring as well. Okay, great. All right. Well, Victor, thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah.
Thanks,
If
Victor.
anybody has any questions, just email me.
Great.
So.
Great. All right. Okay. Thanks, Victor.
Yeah.
Thanks, Victor.
All right. I don't see any more questions in the Q&A. Holly, do you see anything?
I don't.
Great. Well, it's been a busy couple weeks. Some things that we're working on at Great River School are getting very specific about health outcomes and school models. So a lot of families, especially families of elementary and lower elementary students, have asked, what would it take to get in person? And so I've been working with folks to get very specific about that. After MEA break, I think we'll be closer to being able to communicate that. Also after MEA break, we'll be looking, like this call a week from today, we'll be looking at some of the survey data that has come back from families and staff about school models and what they'd like to see. And we'll be sharing that out. With these rising case numbers, I've probably previewed that it looks less likely that we'll be moving school models, especially with case rates going up. And the headlines and reports that I'm seeing in the newspapers and news reports are sometimes not often as helpful as looking at the Department of Health data, which I look at every Thursday. And there's even updates that come out on Tuesday morning. And so what we're seeing is the case rates and positivity rates are going up exponentially right now. And we would like to see that cease and return to lower levels so that we could start talking about how we can do more in-person schooling. But until that point, I do know that some folks at the parent engagement group are looking for ways for families to socialize, and that a couple pioneering minds are thinking about ways we might be able to do a safe harvest fest. So maybe some virtual, maybe some bonfire type gatherings for people who are comfortable doing social distant gatherings physically. And we will, I will be echoing communications from those family organizers likely in the next week or so. So looking forward to all those things. Holly?
Sam?
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Well,
It's a pleasure.
I hope that you, Holly, are able to get a little bit of a break over this MEA weekend.
After tomorrow, professional development, I'll be, virtually with the school still.
With so many folks, right? And so for families, for tomorrow through next week, take care and we'll see you soon.
Bye.